Yeah, so greetings once again and welcome to our Consciousness Study Group. As usual, here we discuss and review this book by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, which is not only a book, but rather a philosophy and ideology for the colonization of Africa. The great part of some months that have gone by, we've been looking at chapter 3 of this book, which is Society and Ideology. And of late, we've been trying to discuss and understand the various, what Nkrumah says, are subtle instruments of ideology. Subtle instruments of ideology is what we've been looking at, and we've reviewed various instruments. Yes.
As I have picked up between all the lines from the beginning of this session, you seem to have been personally touched by the passing of Raila. Are you sure you are in a position to lead this session?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. No, don't worry, I'm okay.
I would have suggested that in honor of Raila, we should skip this session and keep it to basic discussions on his passing as we have started.
So Winlock, I have to say that's what Saturday is for.
Yeah.
That's why we have a Saturday.
So as we had indicated earlier, we have to recognize the presence of all of us who have been with us. But also General Naki, Elder Glenn, we've been joined by Manyika, Sister Ida, Sawindok, and Brother Guan. And salutations to all of you from our Consciousness Study Group. We actually also wish to pass at this particular moment our utmost condolences to our brothers in Kenya, which I come from, with the recent happening. As a class of CSG, we will actually give further communication in regards to that, to send our formal condolences formally. We also plan to have a session to honor Raila Odinga and all his struggle as a class. And we want to assure my fellow Kenyans and the entire globe that we are in solidarity at this particular moment with the people of Kenya, the Luo community, and the entire Black family. So to my friends in Kenya and all the family of Blacks who have been affected, or the entire African community, we are actually passing our deepest condolences to all of us, as we are actually recognizing we've lost a leader whom we have to reflect on his life, and we will set aside for that. So this session, as usual, on Thursdays, we discuss our philosophy and ideology. And some of what is going in the community might also have to come up in this discussion, as we're looking at social cohesion, and probably in the context of even Kenya, the social cohesion might come back in our discussion. So as I've said, we have been looking at philosophy, now ideology, and certain instruments of ideology. And the highlighted paragraph today will be mentioning to us more of reasons and justification for certain instruments of ideology. As usual, we request members and anybody who is willing to read for us the paragraph, and we then ask for any word that might need definition. Then we go around and ask members to share their thoughts. It will be a very brief paragraph, but I hope that we will actually do justice to it. So greetings to all of you and feel most welcome to our class. Anybody who is in a position to read for us this paragraph, please go ahead. Thank you and welcome. Anybody who is able to read the paragraph that's highlighted for us as a class?
The need
Yes,
for subtle, or let me start from a little bit above. If this question is devoid of sense, so is the question why one ought to be moral. A consequence of this view is that social welfare officers should be among the most ethical of men. The need for subtle means of social cohesion lies in the fact that there is a large portion of life which is outside direct central intervention, in order that this portion of life should be filled with other non-statutory methods are required. These non-statutory methods, by and large, are the subtle means of social cohesion. But different societies lay different emphasis on these subtle means, even if the range of conformity which they seek is the same. The emphasis which a particular society lays on a given means depends on the experience, socio-economic circumstances, and the philosophical foundation of that society.
Thank you very much, brother. No,
okay.
Brother Osu, we will only stop with that brief paragraph that you have read.
Okay.
I'll do the second reading to give you also time to digest the paragraph you have read as well. And after that, as I've said, we'll go around and take people's what they think, or even define some of the few words that may need definition. So we say that the need for subtle means of social cohesion lies in the fact that there's a large portion of life which is outside direct and central intervention. In order that this portion of life should be filled with order, non-statutory methods are required. Now, these non-statutory methods, by and large, are the subtle means of social cohesion. But different societies lay different emphasis on these subtle means, even if the range of conformity which they seek is the same. Now, the emphasis which a particular society lays on a given means depends on the experience, on the social economic circumstances, and on the philosophical foundation of that society. That's our reading for today. Is there anyone that any of us might need a definition on in that paragraph you've read? If you feel that there's a word you might need us to define that you don't understand before we start the reading, please let us know the word so that we can define this. Okay, if there's no word, then we can proceed.
Not a word per se, but a phrase rather.
It's okay?
Direct central intervention.
That's a phrase that might need individual thinking to share with us. What do you think about it? Because when you say it's outside direct central intervention, what do you mean by that? Anybody? What do you mean by the word if we say it's life which is outside direct central intervention? Anybody might want to clarify that? Anybody? Okay. Then probably, Brother Sawindok, we might end up having some intervention as we hear what people think about the text. Probably we'll also come across what people think in regards to that, because I know it will be part of their thinking. And if we don't get that, then probably we'll come back, and if our chair will be available, they might be able to share with us that in advance. But I think we will probably come across people sharing their thinking in line with that. Is that okay, Sawindok?
100%.
Thank you. Now, who is willing to start sharing their thinking in regards to this paragraph? Yes, Sister Ida?
I think the bit about non-statutory methods are required. Where does that start? In order that this portion of life should be filled with order, non-statutory methods are required. I think that is directly about direct central intervention, that things that happen outside of the norms of society, which are directed by the people in power, have non-statutory methods, because the central intervention isn't there. They're doing something outside central intervention. And these non-statutory methods, by and large, are subtle means of social cohesion. When I read that, I think, oh, what they're saying is that even though people are being directed to adhere to certain social standards that they have been by law given, there are always going to be people who don't adhere to it. But it for a lot of people, it's a means of social cohesion. The emphasis which a particular society lays on a given means depends on the experience. And I think that that non-statutory direct intervention might be part of the experience they're talking about, but then it spreads to the whole of society, and maybe others take it up, or more people take it up than the small amount of people who started with it. So that would be my comments. I'd love to hear what others think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Ida, for that. Any person want to go next? Anybody want to go next? Okay, let me share my thinking in this process. Or
Brother Pigeon.
Yes.
Yeah. The non-statutory methods. What are they? What is an example of a non-statutory method? That's not a thought, is a question, because I want to understand that in the context of the. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the text says that, let me reread it and then link it to what you're saying, that the need for subtle means of social cohesion lies in the fact of all that they say. In order for this portion of life should be fulfilled with order, non-statutory methods are required. And these non-statutory methods, by and large, are subtle means of cohesion. And therefore, when we talk in this context of non-statutory, is anything that is not statutory. And when we talk of anything that is statutory, is anything we say is either in law or legal, whether in the Constitution or any legal document. Now, we have been covering various subtle instruments. Now, those various subtle instruments, which include history, arts, philosophy, issue of morality and ethics are those non-statutory methods. They might not be explicitly because written in the Constitution or in any document. You may not find explicitly where arts is written in any document as a means of control. So the examples you've listed, arts, ideology, philosophy, history, and even those ethics and morality are those non-statutory instruments. And you remember when you talk about moralities, we are saying what is right. And that what is right, as you said very well, Sawidok, at the beginning of this conversation, you as a typical African. Now that your typical African might not be in any way in law written. Like I've said, in my tradition is the Luo. We don't bury an elder that very fast. It is not statutory anywhere written, but it's been the norms and our traditions as a society, but not written anywhere. So those are what in my thinking, this text talks and refers to them as non-statutory. But then when I want to link it to my thinking, the question is, why is subtle means needed? Those whatever we are mentioning, those traditions, those morality, those ethics, those philosophies, those arts and history. And the answer is very clear in the first line of the sentence, that they are there to enhance social cohesion. Now, if you remember some times back, when we first came across the word social cohesion, there was a word cohesion for cohesion.
Mm.
And there was a debate on that, on whether cohesion is necessary for cohesion. And when we talk of cohesion, we were very explicit on some of the statutory means of coercion. And remember, we went extra mile even to mention the police officers, the use of force, because when we talk of coercion, we were looking at the forceful means. Things like arresting people in a society when they steal. Things like jailing or things like prisoning, things like beating, those were coercing people. And the question we ask is it really good for society to be coerced in order to achieve cohesion? Because then cohesion is the unity or the harmony of community to stay together. And that was a big question. Do you think without cohesion, can there be cohesion? And we are learning in this paragraph, in this first text, that it doesn't only require the physical cohesion we are thinking of, but also these subtle instruments. Like you remember when we talk about the story of the Teddy boys, was it Teddy boys in London and the rest? And you see how the church was using some of very subtle instruments to change these people in a society so that they could behave in a certain way. What basically was the end goal of that practice was to provide some social cohesion in a society. But then, back to my question is that we need subtle instrument in a society to promote cohesion. But then that sentence goes ahead to say that cohesion lies in the fact that there is a large portion of life which is outside direct central intervention. Now let's look at this direct central intervention as probably the statutory means. Sometimes back, I think I'd come across a phrase that you cannot legislate morality. Was it something like that? If you have ever come across that you cannot legislate either morality or character. I don't know if any of you can have come across some quote close to that word. So I will consider those moralities, somehow, those ethics, somehow, to be part of what is outside the direct central intervention. And therefore, This cohesion is coming in to the fact that there are things that the government cannot fully regulate. For example, if you say that in this country we are all equal, what do you do to ensure that people are equal? You cannot legislate too much of equality, but of course you can come up with some rules that can guide towards that equality. But again, in my second text, what I'm looking at is that in order that this portion of life, that portion of life that is outside that direct central intervention, should be fulfilled, should be filled with order. That's that portion of life. That either the behavior, the morality, the anything, that section of life that is outside the legal intervention. Now, in order for them to be filled with order, non-statutory methods are required. And that's why I'll call, for example, religion as one of that non-statutory methods. What is the purpose of religion in a society? It is trying to coerce people, but subtly towards a certain end goal. And then that end goal, probably they're looking at it as a way to bring harmony in that society. We've talked of the story of the Teddy Boys. We've talked of the story of history and how our history was written. And I think Krumah said about that. Our history was written in a way to conform us to a certain endpoint that they wanted. So that when you read your history, you think in that direction. So they don't tell us about the struggle our ancestors went through during enslavement period. They don't tell us about the torture and the suffering. They want to change that story to appear like if they were liberating or saving our ancestors from what they call the dark continent to a civilized world, so that we behave and accept that. So the next one is that these non-statutory methods, by and large, are subtle, and as I've said them, they are very silent, like history. But here is where I want to sort of share my thing that, but different societies lays different emphasis on these subtle means, even if the range of conformity with the seek is the same. So there are people who take too much of art as a way to portray what they think in a society. Most of the society are very artist. I think Sister Chisomo said in their community and their family. Some people focus too much on other elements, the traditions, the norms of the society. Some people might focus too much on their history. If they were coming from the warrior community, the emphasis on teaching their family about the history of their warriors. And I think example is the Zulu community. And that they know will end up giving them certain results they want in a society. The society can continue to be inspired. Now, that's what I can say. But you see, it says again, that emphasis will depend on the experience of that society. Like I was saying, the warrior community of the Zulu. But it can even depend on their social economic circumstances. If they are pastoralists, they'll give some history in that. Or they'll paint or live in certain way. And they say that the sophical and the philosophical foundation of that society. So again, it asks us one question. What is the philosophical foundation of African society today? Which can inform us on what subtle means we want to lay emphasis on. That will be the end of my thinking at this particular moment. And allow any other member who want to come in also to share their thoughts. Anybody? We'll go by our tradition to call names now. So, Brother Benny, do you want to share something?
Yeah, my dashboard is a bit frozen, so unless you call me, okay. Well, what you said about can we have a kind of philosophical basis. You see, I mean, if we understand cohesion and we look at how our African society, even some villages and towns, are so fractured by all kinds of imported systems and beliefs that even people can be ostracized, whereby they don't conform to a particular line their family or clan has taken. It actually raised a lot of questions as to what philosophy actually can guide us today in the situation we find ourselves, which also has been engineered as a way to ensure that that sense of cohesion doesn't work among us. And for that matter, it becomes difficult to actually advance as a society, as countries, and even as a continent of single-minded people. So the issue of cohesion is something that I feel that in our bid also to look for that unity, which has been one of Nkrumah's cardinal aims for this continent. Reading from this text, I think we can find some other ways which are the non-statutory methods. And how do we actually wake these methods up, which probably has not been tampered with, but then they are lying low below to be awakened in a way that they become the focus of all of us to hold on and then begin to feel that we are one. You see. So for me, I think we may not necessarily be able to talk about this academic philosophy per se, yet move down to the subtle levels and then begin to gather what I call the remnant of the ashes, and then use this as a basis to bring ourselves together and then project an aim, even though the divisions may be there, yet it may serve a purpose of driving us forward to a particular aim, which should be our unity. What else? For common goals and common interests. Yes, I'm done, please.
Thank you, Brother Benny.
I'm done.
General Naki, please.
Yeah.
Brother Junaki, please go ahead. And Sister, please step in a bit as maybe in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Just step in. General Naki, then we go to Sawindok. In that order.
Give thanks, son of the lake. Yes. Yeah. This text for me, it reminds me of the apartheid era of South Africa and what's happening now. I think modern society have always really used non-statutory means to try and reach those particular societies. I'll make an example. Here in South Africa, it's the preamble and the Constitution of South Africa clearly states that South Africa is a rainbow nation where everyone is treated equally, and we're promoting basically a one tribe nation is democratic. But again at the same people who are in charge of the government during the apartheid era are now the very same people who are building Orania, you see, where it's a only whites only town. But the Constitution of South Africa clearly states that those things of segregation is in the past. But it's still, you see, white people building their own communities and using subversive means to substantiate the existence of Orania, such as saying that, no, we're trying to preserve our culture is being destroyed. Yeah, you see, so even that's what I'm saying. They use this non-statutory means, but that's the negative side. On the positive side, it's good because, and I will say it on the side of Africans, it's good because even from what I'm experiencing, most of the African people are not interested in administrative affairs. They're really not interested. They're just not interested. It's a lot of paperwork, too much politics, and a lot of thinking involved. They would rather just wait for the final results when you give them the brief and how the meeting went and what is the direction. That they just want to hear that, you see. So in order for you to actually cater for them, those kind of people in your society, you can't send representatives with PhDs and start to using time and explain things to them in English. You must send someone or a delegate who is diplomatic and is able to speak the native language of the members so that they can understand what's going on. You see, because if you can't, because if you go in the formal way of the administration or governance, they won't get you. So I can say that is also the positive side of a non-statutory method in order to achieve a social cohesion. Thank you.
Can I
Yeah,
add
and
to
a question?
what brother Raspala has said? Pigeon.
Brother Pigeon stepped away for a few minutes, so
So
please go on.
who is chairing?
I was meant to be till he came back, but just for a few minutes. But now you're here, you can chair. Thank you.
Who are you running away against, Sister Ida?
Why not? You were missing when it got serious. So yes, let you chair. Thank you.
When did it get serious?
While you were away. Thank you.
You're welcome. Brother Benny, you wanted to ask. I wanted to
Okay.
add to what General said, but please ask your question.
Okay, if you were adding, because a question could have also been. You see, I was reading.
Just so you know, what we normally ask is that we let everybody share their thinking on the passage.
Okay.
So that everyone has a chance to contribute to the discussion based on their own frame of reference. Because we all have different frames of reference. We don't see the world the same way. But even though we all don't see the world the same way, we can all agree that 1 + 1 is 2. So whatever cultural world you inhabit, 1 + 1 should be 2. Although that in itself sometimes can be debatable. By which I mean one what and one what is it that makes 2. So anyway, however, the chair can ask follow-up questions. That is a prerogative of chairing. So if you want to ask questions, you have to start chairing. But anyway, please ask your question.
Anyway, yeah, brother Anunnaki, General. You see, you raise certain issues. At the same time, you were able to look at the positive and the negative. But I was reading a book before I joined, and in fact, it's the history of.
Ras
Yes,
Pala
please.
is able to do that because he's a top dialectician. Carry on.
You see, what let me just go. You see that for those Afrikaners prepared to accept cultural assimilation or who possess a modicum of training, rendering them unsuitable for manual labor, employment opportunities were limited. English was the language of the economy. But if you are to read the whole thing, you find that Afrikaners had to resist the British, the English ways of actually assimilating them to become English. And you look around, you find that they were able to, maybe we can say that, use non-statutory method. And today, if they are talking about having their own cultural ways of establishing their nation, I mean, it comes, like you mentioned, that it comes under the non-statutory method, because then Constitution does not permit such thing to happen. But then here is the case that they are actually achieving something which in some ways we will say is unconstitutional. So here, there is one thing we need to note. Is it building a cohesion of the country, or it is rather fragmenting us more? But my interest in the Afrikaner side is that, you see, they were able to read the
Benny,
English and
Benny,
yes,
Benny,
please.
I think you should pause there because you are not.
Okay.
I think you are
Okay.
going. Let's hear from others.
Okay.
I
Okay. But
disagree
then
with.
I want
I disagree
Anunnaki
with
to
where. Hold on,
respond.
Benny. I disagree with where you are going because you've made this point before in our WhatsApp group, and it's been pointed out to you that if you want to go down the path and say that Afrikaners use non-statutory means, like you are saying, that in itself is debatable. Why? Because the Afrikaners had control of the state. I mean, and when they got control of the state, they used it to promote Afrikaner interests, violently. And the purpose of that was so that they can amass. So to say that they are where they are because of non-statutory means is debatable. But as I said, we leave that for another day.
Okay.
What I wanted add to what General was saying. Now you've made me forget, Benny, what I was going to say. But I think what I was. It's okay. When I remember, I will come back. Shall we hear from others, please? Sisada, who and who have spoken yet?
So Winlock was meant to be next.
Who? Brother Windhoek. Thank you. Sir Windhoek, Namibia, please, let's hear from you. Thank you. You said Windhoek is not ready. So let's go to Brother Eric, if Brother Eric hasn't spoken yet. Brother Eric? Okay, Brother Eric is not ready. Now let me check the chat if someone said it. So nobody has said they can't talk. So I hope you can all hear me because it's very silent.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank
Let's
you.
go to Brother Glenroy, please.
Just listening, comrade. Listening to the conversation. At the moment, I don't have any comment on the text. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Sister Chisomo, please.
Not much to say. I think the line of argument kind of changed when I had something to say. But otherwise, statutory, non-statutory, I think Brother Anunnaki has given a good example of South Africa. whereby different forms are used to achieve different means. And I think Brother Pigeon was talking about coercion, coercing people. Does it achieve the unity that's required? So do we use statutory or non-statutory means? So it depends on what people are trying to achieve. For example, the Afrikaner people and the Ariana model, although they'll say, oh, it's cultural, it's this, and that, but within the Arikana, they have rules, they have constitutions that doesn't go with the country's constitution, but they've come up with their own. But they'll still argue that they're using informal means and it's just cultural stuff that they're using. And then even during the apartheid system and when they were transitioning, they tried to use non-statutory means when they said, okay, let's have this, what were they calling it? All these sessions they were having, discussing this and that to come to unify things. So whether that was coercing people, and obviously once coerced and agreed, it's still not working out. The unity is fragmenting even more. So it depends. It happens in all of our countries. The politicians are going that way. The people are going that way because they don't want to be coerced into all these other systems that they don't believe, don't want to conform with or achieving what the politicians want because they have a different want. So that's when we have the traditional means, like Brother Pigeon was saying. We have traditional means. We've got customary means. The common laws are all non-statutory. So, like the paragraph says, there is life outside the central system that people use to operate their own ways of living. I often watch these Hedzebi people of Tanzania, and then you get people from the cities and different parts of the world going to visit them and then trying to change them, meaning this is the right way of living. And then once they're given the t-shirts and the combs and the glasses and the clothes, after they're gone, they throw them away. They go back to their skin clothing. And then people in the comments will be, oh, why don't they do this? Why do they live like that? Why do they do this? Why do they do that? So this goes on at different levels of our systems, one trying to influence the other, one trying to force the other, one denying that way of living, trying to create their own. And yeah, there is life outside this whole central system, and the central system cannot govern every bit of our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chizomo.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm back,
now.
Brother Kwame. I'm back.
Okay, thank you for coming back, Brother Pigeon. If you are ready, continue to chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we've heard from Sister Chisomo, I hope so.
Yep, we just heard from her.
Okay, so how about Sawindok? And Brother Eric? Let's have Brother Eric. Brother Eric, then Sawindok, please. Brother Eric, can you hear me? Are you in a position to share your thinking?
Yeah, I can hear you. I meant to think in a direction of asking a question first. When we are looking at the non-statutory means versus a central system, is it the question of identity versus interest? If we are to think of uniting a society, a community, because that is the line I'm trying to look at it. If we are to use this non-statutory means, having at the back of our minds that there's a large portion of life outside the complete influence of a central system. In other words, it is easier to govern a people, a community that is conscious of certain things, like something that holds them together and keeps them united is already there in place. So it paves the way for a central authority to really rule easily. So I meant to ask whether could it be an identity versus interest? Because Brother Kwame, you're an Ewe, isn't it?
That's correct.
Hello?
That's correct.
Yeah, I have a narrative. There is this narrative, this narration that my grandfather has always had. He used to talk to us in this way. One time he said that, "Are you proud of being Luo? Aren't you?" Then I said, "Yes, I am." You know, Luo is a bigger ethnic group than in it we have tribes in it. Then inside, I'm Lango. That's the tribe. I'm Lango. Said, "Are you proud as Lango?" I said, "Yes." Then, so arrogantly, my grandfather begins to tell me the things that he expects of me, the things he expects of us. I was like, now, if you are proud as a Luo, this identity he was talking about, you are proud as a Luo, you are proud as a Lango boy growing up. Don't you think if you intermarry, if you bring a woman that is from a totally different society, don't you think you will be defiling our great, community? Don't you think you will be a shame to some of us that have really kept the breed? We have kept the community by having to produce those that are pure of law. So then, as he ended his communication always, he shortly realizes and notices that there are some elements that he can't avoid as well. He has to admit also. Then he says now at the end, often he used to now speak like this as he's concluding his communication. It's like that if you know you are going to marry from another tribe, and that marriage will keep you totally away from our community. That marriage will distract your communication, your unity with us. Please don't try marrying any other tribe. Don't marry outside our community. Then he laughingly with that sarcastic smile, I would say, then he says, marriage outside our community is for only those strong men that if they get women from outside, they will bring those women to our community and manage them from here, and they will become part of us. So this is one of the things that I have been thinking in this line, in this direction, that is it an identity versus interest? Because at the end of it, we will have to first know that this is what make us as a black race, as the Africans. This is what we stand by. Then we can begin to think about maybe our interests. This is my thought. I don't know whether I am trying to, I don't know whether I'm threatening the people that are already mixed with the I know that there are members that are living in the Western world. I'm just sharing my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Eric. Brother Kwame, do you have anything to say on that?
Well, specifically, yeah, Brother Eric is sharing his thinking. Yeah, we've heard him. Well said. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Brother Eric is thinking about identity and all that other element of in this direction of cohesion as well. It's okay, Brother Eric. Sister Ida?
I wanted to thank Brother Eric for his thinking, because I think quite often we don't hear that side of how society tries to dictate to the sexes in their own way, and their but it was a very powerful way of what he had to say, and I appreciated hearing it. Thank you, Brother Eric. Thank you.
Brother Pigeon, if I would add anything to what Brother Eric has said, I would say that Brother Eric's contribution should draw our attention to the role of matriarchy in traditional African society. One of the major works that Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, I hear it's pronounced Diop rather than Diop. One of his major contributions to our civilization, he's a Senegalese physicist who did a lot of work for us. He's the one that wrote the book African Civilization, Africa, the Origin of Civilization, True or False. That really shook people to the foundation. And it was revolutionary at the time. And one of his contributions to African literature and African history is that one of the fundamental differences between Africans and non-Africans is that we are historically a matriarchal society. In other words, the woman is the head of the house, not the man. And that's in opposition to patriarchal societies where the man is the head of the house and not the woman. To the extent that women are subjugated, humiliated, and are even absent in Western history. If you look at Western history, it's a history of men. Occasionally you hear about women, but it's mostly men. It's men that have contributed to everything, false though that is, because I don't know of any man who could ever do anything without a woman. Behind every successful man, they say there is a woman. But the women were hidden. And it's the same with the Islamic civilization as well. Again, women are dominated. And what Dr. Job drew our attention to is the fact that the uniqueness of African civilization historically is that the woman is a matriarch of the home. And you can understand that if you go back into history and understand the origin of human society as rooted in the agricultural revolution. And with the agricultural revolution, the woman then was head of the house because she planted crops around the house. She was minding the house, whilst the man maybe went to war or the man went to hunt and so on. So the woman became the central figure. And there are still societies today where the woman is the head, in fact, even the head of the entire nationality, like the Akans, for instance, the Ashantis, for instance. And before the Ashantis, the dangerous stool. That dangerous stool can be occupied by a woman, and according to the history, a woman has occupied that stool before. So the stool itself is not solely for males. So what about the Eric's contribution is drawing our attention to? I'm not sure if that is what he meant to do, was to draw our attention to the importance and the force and the centrality of women in African historical civilization. And when he said that marrying outside the subgroup he mentioned, you have to be a strong man. So what he's pointing out to us is that if the woman is the head of the house, then when you are bringing a woman into the family, be mindful that you can't subjugate her, and she will pass on her culture, her language, because she's the one educating the children. So the children will speak her language. She will enculturate them, and in all ways, because you are not there as a man. Yeah, maybe you're hunting or you are at work, and she's with the children. In fact, the child is even started in her womb. She is carrying the child. So who are you, the man? You are nowhere. For 9 months, she's carried that child before the child enters the world. And when the child enters the world, the child stays with her. She breastfeeds the child and so on. So what Brother Eric is drawing attention to are these forces. And so what it means in terms of what Dr. Job has contributed is that historically African civilizations have been matriarchal, and therefore women occupy a very strong position in African society, and they still do. Sister Ida's nationality, which is the Gans, you cannot be a priest. You cannot just have a male priest. The male priest has to be complemented by a woman priest. And you will all remember that the Global African Congress practices this. I don't know where they got it from, but that practice by the Global African Congress, of which Brother Glenroy is a leader, that practice is practiced in indigenous African societies even today. And so, for instance, when prayer is to be offered for the nation during what the Gans call the Homo Festival, offerings have to be offered by both the woman and the man on the basis of equality. You see, and the name for God in the Ga language is, I will say it in Ga, is Ata Na Nyongo, which means God who is both male and female. In other words, God is androgynous. You see, and let me pause by saying this. You will notice that you don't have this in Islamic civilization, because the woman is totally dominated. She has to cover her hair. In fact, when you go into an Islamic home, women should not even be seen. That's what Paul says something like this in the Bible. Now women should cover their hair. They should not speak in churches. You know that. And in Western civilization, again, women are dominated. With the rise of feminism, is been challenged. The power of men has been challenged. But you will notice with feminism that the women have just sought to reproduce the same coercion, the same domination, the same instruments that their brothers have been using. So, for instance, hardly will you see white women fighting for the rights of black women, even though black women suffer a lot. But I don't know if anybody has ever seen a group of white women saying that we want to go to Africa and liberate women. But they will fight their men, for example, in England, to sit in the boardroom. And these are the same boardrooms that are making decisions to enslave us, to oppress us, to suppress us. So the white woman is just as interested in suppressing other groups for the benefit of their group. Some argue that racism itself came from there, because they feared competition from the women that were non-white, and so on. I will not go into that direction, but I'm basically saying that what Brother Eric is saying is drawing our attention to the centrality of women. Thank you. I think I'll pause there.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Let's go to Sawindok, if you had not shared your thought. Sawindok? Okay. Elder Glenn, are you able to share your thinking on this text?
Yeah, Brother Glenn said he's just listening for your information, Brother Pigeon.
Okay.
Brother Pigeon, I'm not sure if you shared your thinking. I think you did, but everybody else has been given a chance. It's either you or Brother Kwame, but I think Brother Kwame might feel he said. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't spoken yet. That's true.
So Elder Glenn has spoken.
No, Elder Glenn says he's just listening. That's all. Yeah, for today. Yeah.
How about Sawindok?
I don't think he's by his laptop or phone, because he's been very quiet.
Okay. Now then, I had spoken. So, Brother Kwame, can you please, if you can go ahead and share your thoughts with us?
Right. Okay, I'll be very brief because of time. And you remember we had a lengthy discussion on Odinga and then the situation in Uganda with our UPC brother. So let me be brief. So let me go straight to the implication of what we've read for Africa. Because remember that the chapter is society and ideology, and law, legal instruments are also, if you like, or law, jurisprudence, if you like, yeah, is an instrument of ideology. So whatever laws you have will be determined or guided or influenced, however you want to put it, by the ideological framework or the framework of the society. And the ideological framework of the society itself is also then rooted in its philosophical foundation. And so what it means for us, CSG, is that we have to think very deeply about how we are going to unify Africa. So for instance, some of Africa is patrilineal. They are no different from the Western and the Islamic world. In fact, a large part of Africa is Christian, and a large part of Africa is also Islamic, and a large part of Africa is also traditional.
Brother Kwame?
We have a lot of work to do, because the Christ.
Brother Kwame, we lost you for a minute.
Okay, am I back now?
You're back now, but I think you left off on a large part of Africa is also.
Yes. So a large part of Africa is Christian, a large part is Islamic, and a large part is traditional. And so if we are going to unify Africa, we have to find a way to unify these three cultures. And that is not going to be easy, because for those of you who know, for instance, the Nigerian issue, just Nigeria alone, the Christians and the Muslims have never lived in peace. You know, those of you know the history of that. And whereas in Ghana, the Christians and the Muslims have always lived in peace. There has never been a conflict between Christians and Muslims in Ghana. Rather, the conflict has been between Christians and the traditionalists, because the Christians are very arrogant. They are so arrogant that they even like to shut down the traditionalists. So, for instance, in the capital of Ghana, the land on which the capital of Ghana sits belongs to the Ghan people. So what it means is that culturally, they have control over the land, and there are rites that they have to perform. And in August of every year, they have to perform those rites. And then the arrogant Christians think that it is their right to play drums and play music in the church. And yet, according to the cultural traditions of the Ghan people, in August, thereabouts, when this festival period is taking place, there shall be no drumming in all of Ghan lands. There shall be no singing, and the Christians, because they think they are the only people who know God, and the rest of us don't know God. Only they have met Jesus, and Jesus is their personal savior and all that. So they disrespect the traditionalists. So the result has been, you wouldn't believe this, but literal fighting. Christians fighting blows with traditionalists. It's amazing. The point I'm making is that if we are to unify Africa, we have to take all this history. I mean, these things don't happen these days because the Christians have understood that they don't have their rights does not override the rights of the owners of the land who were there before the Christians arrived. They were there before Christianity arrived. So the rights of Christians cannot override the rights of the Ghan people, and so on and so forth. So if Africa is united, we have a lot of work to do. So what this passage is telling us is that we can't unify Africa just with the law and say, okay, so the nationalities have met, they've passed a law, and the law says that this is our constitution. We're going to have a new constitution, and that constitution will be that Africa is united, and this is how we'll govern we'll govern Africa as one nation. The point this paragraph is making is that in itself will not unify Africa. It won't. We will have to rely largely on what someone might say, if you like, instruments like, for example, education, things like education, cultural awareness, rely on our educational system, and look at the philosophical foundations of that united Africa. And if you take education, for instance, one of the reasons why Ghana is a small country compared to Nigeria. Sometimes people forget that. Nigeria has, is it 33 or 35 states? Ghana is only one. Ghana can fit into Nigeria about maybe 30 times. And so Ghana is no match for Nigeria when it comes to size and land size and population. There are states in Nigeria that are bigger than Ghana. Ghana is about, I think our population now is about 30-something million, I think. There are states in Nigeria that are more than that. And in terms of land size, there are states in Nigeria that are bigger than Ghana. So, the point I'm making is that what education does, or did in Ghana, is that the children of all groups meet in the classroom, and that's where they are all educated. So because we grew up together, If you take Ghana, for instance, we grew up together in the same school. I went to Bishop Herman, it used to be Bishop Herman College. Now it's called Bishop Herman Secondary School. And in that school, we had children from all over the country, from groups we had never heard of. And so what it did, it bonded us. So what education does is that it bonds children. And that is why in England you have public schools. The purpose of public schools in England is to unite the elites, because the elites all go to the same school. You know, they go to the same public schools, they go to the same universities, and so they are bonded as a group. So what we are saying is that if Africa is to unite and successful, we have to find a way to create educational institutions to which all our children will go. Luo children, Kikuyu children, Zulu children, Nama children, Igbo children, all of them, they have to go to the same school. This is what we are talking about. And that is how they will then intermarry. Because if they know one another, then they can marry cross-culturally. Then that raises a challenge that Brother Eric talked about. Because some ethnic groups are not happy with marrying outside their groups. But if we educate them all together, then and they become the elders, they can then change the customs and the rules and so on. I think I can't.
We've lost you again.
Culture, education, and the statutes alone, passing a law, the nationalities passing a law, we cannot unite Africa. Already we have OAU and AU charters. They are not uniting us. So that's already evidence, that they can't unite us. I'll pause there, please, because of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Brother Kwame, in line with that, do we need a subtle instruments to unite Africa rather than statutory ones?
Yes, that is what I've been saying, that when we are educated together, what then happens? We live together as children. Our children live together. So the Luo child and the Aman Eve, Staida is a Gan, not sure who the others are, but our children will then go to school together. And then guess what? Then I'll know more, they know more about your daughters. And then your daughters will know more about our sons. And that is how we unite Africa. We have to unite Africa also in the bedroom. We can't just unite Africa on the floor of parliament. It has to be also in the bedroom, in the kitchen. We have to share each other's food and so on and so forth. So that's why culture is vital. Anyway, let me pause there because of time. Thank you. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Brother Kwame, because you point to us even as we come towards the close end of this subtle means that we spend time to discuss, that for the modern or the contemporary Africa, we need to look at the subtle instruments on how we or our ideology for unification of Africa can be attained. And these issues, as you've said, include, of course, from my said question that Brother Eric asked about marriage or intermarriage, language, even to the extent of the naming, extent of cultural practices, sports, and all those other activities. How do we take advantage of them in order to unify Africa? And not only to unify, for the purpose of this book, how do we decolonize Africa? The decolonized Africa, of course, is a totally united, to me, totally liberated and totally developed Africa. Now, I would like to thank all of you members for having shared your thoughts on this paragraph. It's been, as Brother Kwame said, we spent some time a bit not to the main discussion, but we appreciate the concentration and the discussion we've had today. And I think we've learned a lot on what we need to do in regards to how do you also bring social cohesion, which to us could be the unification of Africa, and how do we need some of the subtle instruments and how do we put that into practice. I think, Brother Kwame, it will be in order for us maybe to produce a paper once we are done with these subtle instruments on what are the subtle instruments we propose to the unification of Africa in this context on this contemporary life, and also borrowing the what Nkrumah we've learned from history, arts, ideology, ethics, and the rest, so that we do a paper on how we link that to the current state as to the guidance to the Pan-African society on how we propose the unification of Africa. I think that will be in order to come from us. Now, having said that, comrades, we are 1 minute past our 10. We thank you once again for your attendance and for this session. Let's meet again next week as we try to move to the African context that is in the next chapter or then the next paragraph. And for this Saturday, I believe we are doing the Africa Unification Part 2 with a high feeling that we might also interfere it a bit with also still remembering part of it to Raila Odinga, as we even look forward to dedicate a full time for Raila Odinga. So let's look forward to the Unification of Africa Part 2 that was presented by Brother Kwame. And also, we promise, of course, we'll have some time as bit also to reflect a bit on Raila and how that journey moves towards the unification as well of Africa. But we are promised to have a full day dedicated for Raila Odinga. So may you all have a lovely evening, and I will assure you that I will share the recordings for this week. I've delayed from sharing that. The week hasn't been whole with me, but I'll share the recordings before the end of this week so that you can have the recordings of the previous week. That's it from my side. Brother Kwame, back to you.
Yeah, that's it. That's it from me as well. We thank everyone for coming, as you've already said, and we look forward to the next 2 sessions. Thank you.